I love being myself, but the characters let you be the person that you sometimes want to be.
Rebecca Zamolo is a YouTube superstar, actress, activist, and all-around entrepreneur.
I grew up performing as a gymnast, so the performance aspect I love.
She has over 43 million combined social followers and over 7 billion views on YouTube.
For me, one of the biggest things is building a community with my audience.
Rebecca got her start on YouTube when she captured her ongoing struggle with ulcerative colitis.
It's now been 3.5 years since my surgery, and I am just so blessed and lucky to be alive.
Rebecca talks about her willingness to document the most important events in her life.
I'm having this surgery. I want to document it. I have to tell people.
Rebecca also talks about creating an empire with her husband.
He keeps me sharp. He challenges me.
You don't want to miss this epic interview.
I've always been fearless, so I'm like, let's go.
Let's act like we're on Shark Tank right now.
Oh,
you
man.
have 60 seconds, and Jay and I are both sharks.
So my content is family-friendly content that hopefully empowers the next generation to be more confident. We put a lot of things in our videos that hopefully the audience can solve. I really like to do videos where the audience is not just sitting and watching, but they're actually engaged.
Yeah.
And I talk to them as if they're another person in the video.
Wow.
So I like to always think of the camera as like our fifth person or our fourth person or whatever it is, and really make them feel like they're a part of the video as well.
I'm investing.
Are you investing?
I'm investing. That sounds amazing. No, I love that. And that feels so aligned with what Dhar and I are trying to do with this show. Like, the whole goal of it was to inspire, all the future generations to think differently, to have access to insight from people like you. And I just want to dive in and say, I've seen you play all these characters, and we've had some of them back there as well. That's a big part of your content, playing these characters, having these roles. First of all, how did you figure out that you enjoyed playing different characters, and what's been the best one or your favorite one that you've played?
I mean, I love being myself, but the characters let you be the person that you sometimes want to be. And so when you get to tap into these different parts of your personality and then just enhance them, or if you're, a mean girl, you get to like feel what it's like to be a mean girl. And maybe it's not the best thing, but you're like, whoa, that's what it's like. I mean, I loved being a superhero. I recently did a video where I transformed in a superhero for my daughter. I think that there's not as many women represented on YouTube in a strong way. And, my content's very different than a lot of the traditional lifestyle beauty makeup. And I like showing that women can do a lot of the physical things that guys do. So anytime I can be something that is empowering women, I love that, because I want them to think they can be Spider-Man too, and do the things that boys do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of your content kind of reminds me of my own style as well, in a way. Like, I didn't start creating videos thinking that I was gonna do these short sketches or even have a younger audience that I was trying to have learn these important life lessons. But it was something I found that I was very passionate about. So what was that journey for you like? Like, when you started creating content, did you know that you were gonna create content for maybe younger people or try to make it where it was teaching them lessons? How did you stumble upon this format?
The way I grew my YouTube channel is Musical.ly was around. And no adult wanted to be on Musical.ly, but I saw that there was a very engaged audience, very similar to what TikTok is now. And I was like, at the time, YouTube was like, if you didn't have a big following, it's not like it was now. It was harder to break in, I feel like, then. Whereas now, it's based on video performance. There's all these other things. But at the back then, it was like, 2015 was based on subscribers. If you had 10 million subscribers, someone with 100 could not compete. But now I feel like it's a little more of an even playing field. And so I saw that as an opportunity to gain an audience and to move them over to YouTube. And with Musical.ly, it was a younger audience. So without intentionally doing it, I started getting younger followers. And then if I posted things, I started getting comments like, that I'd never even thought of that were like, wait, why would you do that? You know, things where I was like, wow, do I want a younger audience maybe seeing something like this? And I was like, oh gosh, like I want to make sure I'm a good role model for my audience if these are the people watching my videos. And so I started being very aware of that. And then I started thinking about like, what would I have wanted to see if I were them and like I needed, because clearly we're not even close to the same age as our younger audience, but they're looking at us for something. And I think the biggest thing for me being on Musical.ly and being like an adult with all of these 10-year-olds and like I collabed with a 3-year-old, it's like, it kept me very humble in regards to, I have just as much respect for a 10-year-old creator as I do for a 20-year-old creator.
I love that.
And they can do just as well. We're all, I mean, no matter what age you are, we're all on the same playing field. So like, if anything, it's easier to be younger. And so I just always had a respect for this younger generation, and I treated them like equals because they were equals. We were the same, you know, and I think that made it easier. And I think that's one of the reasons I can connect to a younger audience is because I respect so much of where they are in life, and I love their innocence. I love their creativity. I just, there's so much that I respect when they say something, it's so honest and real. And there's so many things that we lose as we get older that they still have.
So true.
And so I never talk down to them because I feel like they can teach us just as much as we can teach them. And I think that's the one reason I can stay connected to this generation is because I'm constantly like learning from them, just as like hopefully they're learning from me, and it's like this give and take.
That's such a great mindset. I think that's such a great lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
To be able to figure out that whenever we're serving an audience, or if you're a business serving a customer, or even if it's with your friends, it's like the idea of always learning from the people that we're around is such a brilliant message for people to take away, whether you're a creator or not. You've been making content, I think, for like 7 years. I've been making content for 6 years, so around the same time. I'm intrigued, before this Musical.ly moment, what was it that you thought you were gonna do, or what is it that you were pursuing before all of this? Because 7 years of making content is a significant amount of time, but at least for me, I never set out thinking, I'm gonna make content and I'm gonna have all these platforms. I was just like, I have a message, I want to share it. No one cared. I was rejected from like 10 media companies who didn't like the idea. And that's why I resorted to social media. So what was it for you?
So for me, I moved to LA after graduating college, and I wanted to do acting. I was doing commercials, and I wanted to perform. I originally thought I wanted to do sports broadcasting, and then I realized I cared nothing about stats or anything. I only liked to go to games, and like I only liked the sports I played. So it was like very limited and niche, and I was like, okay, so what do I like? Well, I love performing. I was a gymnast growing up. And then I ran track and field in college. I loved performing. So I was like, well, I want to do acting. And I thought that would be it. And I was studying. I was in improv. I trained at Second City. I was studying my craft, and doing commercials was how I was making my living. During all of that time, I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. What people didn't know on the back end of all of the acting is I was very sick, and I was going to the bathroom like 50 times a day. And if I booked a shoot, I had to take like 6 Imodium just to make it through a day. And then the next day would be like the repercussions of like my stomach bleeding. It was very hard. So I'd be very stressed. Like I remember wanting to book a commercial, but not wanting to book it a multiple day shoot, because then I was like, I don't know if I can fake being healthy for multiple days. And like what people didn't know is that I was in the hospital like once a month for, you know, multiple days at a time so I even got dropped by a manager because I couldn't make a call back. What? And so from then on, I learned to kind of hide it and to hide my sickness. I've had over a dozen colonoscopies. If anyone's nervous, like just talk to me. I've had like, I am like the pro of those. Like I took my final one before my wedding, and the doctor's like, this is bad. You might die if we don't remove it. And I was like, oh, I was probably just stressed for my wedding. Like, just give me a month. And I did yoga and I meditated, and I did a month of like no social media. I mean, at this time I wasn't even big on social media. And I came back and it had exponentially gotten worse. And so I had to make a choice for life or death to have this surgery. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna have this. But in doing so, I would have an ostomy bag. This is a long story, but I promise it's why I'm on YouTube. So I had to wear an ostomy bag. So I did a Kickstarter campaign and I funded, because I was looking for people to look up to. And there was no one that had like done this. And that so many people are affected by IBD, Crohn's disease. And I was looking for a role model and there was none. So I funded a campaign, documented my journey. It was supposed to be a 3-month thing. I got like $15,000 and I woke up from my surgery and they were like, it's really bad. It's not 3 months. I woke up with the ostomy bag and they were like, it's gonna be 9 months and we need to do 3 surgeries. So then I was like, great, I have no more money for my documentary. Like there's no happy ending here, you know? I still have an ostomy bag and like, I was like, well, I can't go to auditions right now. I was like, well, I can film YouTube videos. I can go from the waist up. I can be at home because obviously recovering from a major surgery with your whole large intestines taken out is not easy as well. And so I was like, well, I can film from there. And so I started filming YouTube videos and then I would produce for other YouTubers. And I'd basically say, I'll do it for free. I had some viral videos and I was way too confident. And I was like, I'll do it for free. I'll get you a viral video. Just do a video on my channel. And like, that's how I did it. And then I eventually got like hired to like help produce, like run a tour manager. I was like, I haven't done that, but I can learn, I can do it. So I tour managed and I just started building and studying YouTube and just like watching creators and like why they were making mistakes and why they were growing and why they were relevant. And then when they lost it, what happened and just like watching it. And then by 2017, I was like, I had 300,000 subscribers and I had Musical.ly. No one wanted to do Musical.ly. I'd be like, go to Musical.ly. You will grow your audience. You can move them. So I was like, well, I'll do it. So I started just doing that. It got to a point where I had to choose, like, I was only working on my channel while I could, like before noon on a tour and then be running and so I had to make a decision, when do I go full time? And so that's kind of the gist of how I started YouTube. And I that's when I pivoted to just doing my own channel, was like 2017.
Wow. There is so much to dissect there.
Yeah.
There is so much to dissect there.
Yeah, I can't believe it. You know, we've interviewed a number of guests that have gone through different challenges, like different ups and downs. And a lot of people have to deal with, you know, criticism, failure, mean comments. But you here are actually, you know, dealing with serious health issues. That's such an amazing, you know, survivor story, fighter story. I love that. Was there a certain video that was like really, that went viral or that kind of changed the game for you early on?
So luckily, confidence was never an issue for me. Like I look back, I'm like, what was I thinking? But I did a parody, and it was a parody to I'm So Fancy.
Yeah.
And that went viral. And that essentially gave me the confidence to think that I could constantly create viral videos. Which then led me to being like, okay, I need a YouTuber with this many and I'm gonna help them. And then I just wanna grow my channel. So that would be like the one video where I was like, well, I went viral here. I must be good at this. And it was like not the case.
What was your confidence built on at that time, Rebecca? Because I find that, you know, having to hide health challenges can be really uncomfortable. And like you said, it got to a point where it was life-threatening.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, how do you stay confident?
So that was a big turning point for me about being honest. Everyone that gave me advice was like, don't tell anyone you're sick. And the second I was open about it and I was like, I'm having this surgery, I want to document it, I have to tell people. I got so many, I mean, that was my first like true connection with people. I had done viral videos, but never had a connection like that. And that's where people were like, I've suffered with stomach problems, or I'm facing, my doctor wants me to get this surgery, should I do it? And, you know, it was like, at that moment, I felt so free. And it's like, when you have to keep secrets in, it really like, it's a weight. It just like, it's like you're carrying like a pound of bricks every day. And it's like this thing. And as soon as I could be open about that, it was like the most freeing thing. And after that was really when I felt like I began to fly. Like once it was like, okay, it's down. Like I'm sick, but like I'm going now. And so that was really a game changer. And even moving forward, you know, I had a miscarriage before getting pregnant and I was being open again. It was like all over again, just on a bigger scale. I was like, wow, like it's like the lesson I keep learning is how being honest and authentic to your, like, and just being open and like admitting you're not perfect and you have to deal with these things. That's what has, I don't know, just made me feel very fearless.
That's so powerful. It reminds me of my own journey, actually, as of recently, because my whole life, you know, I've seen myself, I'm a 6'2", you know, strong man, I like to think. And so naturally, as a man, you know, especially when you're bigger, you don't want to think that you're vulnerable to certain things such as depression or anxiety or panic attacks or something like that. And out of nowhere, when I turned 37 years old, I started experiencing anxiety for the first time. And I was so embarrassed by it. I didn't want to tell anyone. I only told my wife because I thought people would judge me for that, right? And then also I almost felt like I had no reason to be anxious and people would be like, you're at such an amazing place of your life. You've been blessed with so many things. Like, why are you going through that, right? I remember there was this time very similar to how you pushed like through casting and auditions and things while dealing with these health issues. There was a time where my anxiety had just started. It got really bad where almost every day I felt like I was gonna die. That was just the thought that went through my mind. And I would have to focus on my breathing for long periods of time just to be able to get through it. But this was the first commercial flight that I was taking while I was experiencing anxiety. And I was gonna go see my family back home. So I drove to the airport, and as I'm pulling up, I suddenly got a vision of what happens if I have a panic attack when I'm on this plane? I can't get off the plane. Like, what am I gonna tell people? People are gonna see me. Like, what if I die? All these thoughts were going through my head. And so I called my brother because he had also dealt with this before. He dealt with a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. And I was like, I don't think I'm coming home. And he goes, well, why not? And I was parked outside of valet. I was looking at valet and they were looking at me like, are you gonna park your car? Are you not? I was feeling anxious, just trying to make this decision if I take this flight or not. And I called my brother and I was like, yeah, I'm not getting on this plane because I'm feeling really anxious and I'm worried what's gonna happen if I get on the plane and have a panic attack. And he said, all right, it was totally up to you. If you don't wanna fly, it's up to you. But he said, what I will say is, you're gonna be running from this for your entire life if you decide not to get on that plane. And then I just thought that if I don't park the car and go in, the next time I wanna go eat at a restaurant, the next time I wanna go visit my parents, the next time I wanna go to a movie or a social event or anything else, I'm gonna be faced with the same decision. And so it was important to me to win that one battle and move forward. And I took that flight. I was totally fine. I didn't have any problems. And then anytime I face some sort of opportunity like that again, I remember that flight. And that always helps me push forward. And I was open and honest with my audience. Like I actually storied my experience with this on Instagram. And that was my first time actually going public about my anxiety. And I was worried about the judgment that people would have. Actually, Jay, you were one of the first messages that came to me and said, hey, if you ever want to talk, if you ever want to hang out, like I'm there for you. But so many people actually connected with me more. That actually strengthened my relationship with my audience because they could relate to what I was going through. So I have this saying that I say that your struggle becomes your superpower. And in the beginning, we're so embarrassed by our struggle, but it's similar to how like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, said that his accent, which he saw as his struggle, is actually what made his line in Terminator, "I'll be back," so iconic. And so it actually ended up becoming his superpower. So how does it work for you in terms of like being, like so many people are probably worried about the things that they're embarrassed about and opening up and the judgment that's gonna come from that. So how was that for you, putting your whole life, you know, out there for people to see the good and the bad?
It's a lot easier now I think people want to see realness, and I think I really try to tread the balance of I want to be positive, and I also want to focus on that, but then also showing the negative, but not too much of it as well. I think what you focus on is you get more of. So I want to address it. I like to sit in happiness and feel that place. I pooped in a bag. Like, it's not going to get much worse for me. I think I set the bar from the beginning. I went so like I pooped in a bag and it fell on my carpet, and that's in my documentary. So I think everything now is much simpler. Dealing with my audience, I really appreciate seeing that in other people. So I feel like they want to see that from me as well. And so it's not that hard. The miscarriage was hard, but it was harder keeping a secret. I don't know, for me, how I feel is I feel better being honest, and like I keep learning that over and over again. And so it almost like smacks me in the face like, what are you doing? This isn't you.
The incredible thing I'm hearing from listening to you is this idea of you're removing so many taboos. Like, there's so many taboo topics that people are uncomfortable to talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're putting them out there, whether it's in your documentary or talking to your audience about it. That's extremely vulnerable, but as you're saying, that's what gives you that sense of freedom to be yourself. What were you doing? And, you spoke just now about your miscarriage. Like, that's one of the most difficult things from people that I've spoken to who've been through that to go through. What were you doing for yourself? So we've talked almost about how and when you told your community and your audience, but what were you doing for yourself to deal with that?
When I had my colon removed, what we didn't know is how bad it was. And when they pulled out my colon, it disintegrated. So it was a matter of a week or two where I wouldn't have been alive. I'm so happy I did not know that at the time. But I remember seeing myself looking down on the operation board and seeing my body. I saw that. But once you get to that point, I would say that is low. When you get saved or you get to have your life back, you're just grateful for life, So it's like that really shifted. What am I scared of? I feel like I became fearless from that point on, where I was like, life is so short, and I got to see that, and I'm given this second chance. Like, I have nothing holding me back. We only have ourselves holding us back. And whenever I get to a place of feeling anxious or being stressed or any of that, because that obviously happens with the stuff, I go back to that point and I try to remember that. So that's kind of like my trigger, where I'm like, remember then, like, you were just happy to be alive. So that's like my go-to. And then as far as like a morning routine, and this is just, I start my day without my phone for the first 30 plus minutes. I turn off my alarm, and the only thing I put in my phone is I do like a 6-phase meditation. That's what works for me. I'm very like, ADD, and I jump around, and that's like the meditation that like works, where I can like, I'm focusing on this now, and then this and this. I always start with that. It goes through all the processes of being grateful and visualizing your day and what you want and all of that. And then I journal. I always start with everything that I am. So it's like, I am strong, I'm focused, I am powerful. Like I write that every day, everything I want. The next is everything I'm grateful for, because I just feel like every day you should be doing that. And then I go into everything that I am receiving. And I think between the visualization of the meditation for me and that, where I see myself with all of the things already. So I do that every day.
That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for going there. Yeah.
As you're saying all this, by the way, it's just sparking all these stories and memories for me. I'm sure even for those listening, they can really relate to a lot of what you're saying. So thanks for being so vulnerable and open about these really hard issues. We really appreciate it. Some of what you said reminds me of this book I read by the Dalai Lama, the Book of Joy. It says, the depth of your suffering defines the height of your joy. And it almost takes you to go to the lowest lows in life in order to experience those highest highs.
Yeah.
And so I really connect with that. And I remember on Christmas Day last year, a lot of people ask, like, how was your Christmas? Like, did you have a good holiday? I was actually in the hospital because my 1-year-old daughter at the time had developed COVID, and her fever was like above 103. Her eyes started like going, like rolling up to like the, back of her head. It was the scariest thing that I had ever experienced. It's one thing to deal with health issues yourself. It's a whole nother thing that, when you're seeing your child deal with it too. We spent Christmas in an ambulance, and I actually couldn't even go inside of the hospital because of COVID happening. And so I could only FaceTime with my daughter and with Laura. And my daughter is crying uncontrollably. She couldn't understand what was going on. The doctors are like putting tubes in her. They're trying to get her on breathing machines.
Having a daughter now, I'm like,
it's so hard. And all she was saying is, daddy, daddy, like, I want my daddy. And I couldn't be in that room. And so I had to try to comfort her over this video. And what was going through my mind is like, the last time I was with her, I was on my phone some of that time. I wasn't 100% in that moment. And all I felt was like regret for not being there, more present for her when she was with me. And, thankfully, everything turned out fine, and she was released
I remember
like the
seeing
next
those
morning.
stories. I definitely remember.
It's so terrifying. But then as soon as she got back home, like, in a way, it almost turned out to be the biggest blessing for my relationship with her, because now I never take the time that I have for granted. And I needed to experience something like that in order for for that really to hit home for me. So I connect a lot with what you're saying. Now, to go more on a positive note, I guess, like, you have this you have this beautiful baby girl now. So what is it actually like being a mom after going through what you've been through?
I've always wanted to be a mom. I was told after my surgery it would be very hard to have kids. That's also why we went the IVF route. I mean, this is what I wished for. I wanted a girl. So with IVF, you can pick your gender. I had boy eggs. The girl eggs were not as good. So we put in girls first, and none of them worked. So it was down to me getting, and my last one, I ended up having the miscarriage. So usually what gender you have, but I wanted to get pregnant at this point, and I was like, I had to accept that maybe it wasn't going to be a girl, and we could look into other options. So we put in, it was one female weak egg. It was the last one, that's why, because we put in all the strong ones, and then a very strong boy. And we put both of them in. And so one attached and one did not. And so we didn't know. At that point, you can't tell. Once you're in, they can't be like, oh, that egg, that looks a little more like a boy. You don't know which one attached. And so I had to really be okay that it was a boy. And it wasn't that I didn't want a boy, I just also wanted a girl. And I knew that this was my last option. The gender reveal, which is up there, is so emotional because I had prepped myself to not show that I'd be disappointed with a boy, because I was like, I don't want people to think I'm not grateful. I'm so grateful. It's just also I have to know that having a girl will not be an option. So I was like, so when I found out I'm having a girl and she beat all the odds and like literally had very little chance, I was like, so like, to be a mom is like, it's amazing. I think the biggest struggle as a creator is that, generally the mom stays home, but when you're running a company, you can't stay home. And, there's definitely different gender stereotypes. And, I think men are allowed to go back to work a lot earlier than women. I worked to build this, and I want to show my daughter that I am a strong woman, and I'm very passionate about both, and I think I can do both very well. I went back to work a week and a half later.
Wow.
We made sure at the time we had like care, so like she's always cared for, and I'm really now just kind of adjusting and figuring out what this new balance is. But I really don't want to lose all of the content I make. Like I have so many comments that are like, let's appreciate that Rebecca's posting because she's a mom. And I'm like, but a guy can go back to work? They're like, let's appreciate Rebecca posts because she's pregnant. I'm like, how are women, like women have to work too. Like, how is it like such a big deal that I'm filming a video 9 months pregnant? Like, I think it's very societal norms that like a woman can't go back to work, or a woman has to be like, why can't Matt help out with the baby? Like, why am I changing all the diapers? Like, I built a company, like, why can't we have like tag team this, you know? I've been kind of juggling the two, but I think that's the biggest struggle.
It's amazing to hear how full circle it is. Like, you went and got through all the odds.
Yeah.
Then you had a baby girl who got through all the odds.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing to see that. And it feels like this trend of like people's opinions and people sharing their views on pretty much anything and everything, right? Like, and what I find is that it applies to every part. And of course, I do think that women receive more of it than men for sure, whether it's professionally, with children, whatever it may be. At least from what I've heard from people that I know, like, you know, but I feel like the idea of opinions affecting us, I remember when I first decided to turn down my job offers and become a monk, it was like, everyone was like, that's so random, and everyone had judgment about it. And then when I left, there was so much judgment about it.
Yeah.
And then when I had a safe career and wanted to pivot into doing what I do now, there was judgment about it.
Yeah.
And so what I find is that, and obviously from both your stories, there's just judgment at every step.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned it a few times in this interview where you're like, you know, why do we keep listening to people around?
Yeah.
How have you decided who's in your close circle now? Like, how do you make choices about your inner circle?
Yeah, I keep a small circle also because I'm busy. It's like sometimes I want more of a circle, but I'm like, I don't have time. People that I like to keep around me, I mean, they say that you are who you, like the top 5 people you like spend the most time with, like builds you. So I'm always like surround myself with people that make me feel good. Like, and I can go off feeling, and also people that make me a better person. I can judge that, like, am I better when I'm around them, or am I like sinking into a catty negative space? Or so I go off that. Am I a better person after I'm around them? And that's like my core at my house. Like, it's people that where I'm like, wow, I'm a better person because of you. Yeah, does it bring out the best in me? And then I just love surrounding myself with people that inspire me, and I just love learning. Maybe that's why the YouTube space is very comfortable. I love it because people are like, oh, it always changes and this and that. And I'm like, I love that. I would be so bored if I was doing the same content 5 years ago as I was now. Like, I love the challenge of like getting to be better. And I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond than a big fish in a small pond where I'm not the best and I can just be like learning about things. So I just like love meeting people. And like, I know Dhar, I haven't known him for that long, but you better believe, like, I know all about you guys. I love listening to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. My brain doesn't work. Like, I can't always read. I can read, but I don't process the same way. I've learned this even with videos, is I see it. If someone tells me and I talk it, I see it in my head and I build it out in my head before anything's written. So I love podcasts. I love like the Jay Shetty podcast. I love My First Million. I love Rob Dyrdek. Like, I listen to these people, and so I feel like I know them, but those are the people that I would say I surround myself with, is like those people I talk to every day, or I listen to, I have a conversation with every day. And so maybe my circle is not out there. I'm making videos all the time, but every morning when I go running, like, I'm listening to someone who I think is my friend. Just probably like when people watch our videos, they think they know us, is like, I think I know all of these people, and maybe I've met them, or that's like my circle, even though they don't know it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I saw a funny meme the other day that said, my circle is so small now, it's a dot. That's what it reminded me of. And yeah, I always say that you can be mentored by people you've never met.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I function off of as well, is that sometimes if people are in parts of a city or a town where they feel disconnected, or you live in a country where you don't feel you're surrounded by people that you get along with, or you have a family that doesn't understand you, you can still connect with like-minded people that uplift you
Yeah.
through podcasts, YouTube, social media. So
Yeah.
I love that point. I agree.
That can be your, and again,
That can be your circle.
if you are around people that maybe you're like, these people aren't helping me grow, you have control over that.
Yeah.
Like, you're never stuck.
I also see just like visualization and imagination has been such a key part of your success, because like even through your content, you're playing characters and creating other characters that are almost mentors or your circle in your life, right? So that definitely really resonates with me. There's a saying that says, avoiding toxic people is not weakness, it's wisdom. And I think a lot of times we start to feel guilty, like, oh, I don't want to spend time with this person, but they're my family member, or I've known them from childhood, so I have to. But you have that feeling, like your gut kind of tells you that you're not happy, right? You don't feel like yourself. It doesn't feel like it's uplifting you or building you. So just following that inner voice, I think, is also so important. And you're also fortunate because you get to work with your husband, right?
Yeah.
As part of creating your content.
Fortunate, I know.
Yeah. So what is that like? What's it like creating content and running this empire essentially with your significant other?
Oh, it was an adjustment. We went from like trying to spend time together to trying to spend time apart, because I mean, we're in it together. I'm very open. I'll bicker with him. We've been together for so long. I was 19 when I started dating him, and I never thought that like I'd marry him. I was like, oh, I'm going to college. Oh, he asked me out now, but he was like touring and I was doing like my college stuff. And it's just funny how it worked out, because I was never planning on meeting my husband at 19. And then I was like, oh, I'm not ready. So like we dated a decade before. I was like, oh, I'm like the opposite of most. I'm like, no, I'm not ready to get married, even though I've been in this like serious monogamous relationship for 10 years. I'm like, I don't know if I can commit. It's giving me anxiety. It's been such a great thing. Like, to say that we always get along is completely untrue. We definitely bicker. I know at the end of the day, he's looking out for my best interests. So as a couple, we rarely fight. It's always to do with like business. But what he does is he challenges me. As you start creating and getting bigger, it's easy to have a lot of yes men around you. And I'll be like, what if we do this? And everyone's like, cool. Yeah. And then he's like, ugh, that's terrible. And this is why you should try this. And so he keeps me sharp. He challenges me. He's like, that's a terrible idea. And I'm like, well, I think this, and we'll just, bicker. And at the end of the day, I love it so much because he challenges me and he makes me better. And it's like, you've got to keep a circle around you that keeps you accountable, that doesn't just think that everything you do is a good idea, because it's not. Like I've had so many fails, and I appreciate someone stepping in and being like, that's okay, but this would be better. And then I can like talk it out, and hearing that makes my videos better. I think we both have different strengths. I tend to do more of the like creative pre-production. He likes to do the post-production. It's a nice balance. We have like our areas, and then we also work together. So it's challenging, but it's like, to say it's easy is like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could just like go home to my husband and vent to him, but I'd be venting about him too. So I'm stuck. But, obviously I love it. He was in the hotel business before. I convinced him to leave. He was not keen on it. He didn't, and I was like, don't worry. I've always been fearless. So I'm like, let's go. I'm glad he did it,
Yeah.
So when you guys travel, he chooses the hotels, I assume.
Yeah, he's like, where city are you in? And he'll like name all the hotels in your city.
That's
like,
amazing.
Don't get him started on hotels. He like,
Yeah, I found that my wife and I started a business together, or a company together, 8 to 9 years into our relationship. And we founded a tea company because we both love tea.
Same.
And so we started an herbal tea company, which is expanding out into sparkling teas. And everyone always asked us, like, how do you get along in the business? And I was like, well, after 8 to 9 years, we really know each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so I know that she's a whiz when it comes to like the herbs and the recipes and like what tastes good together and the blends. And then she trusts me on the organization and the marketing and the branding. And it was like, it became easier when, if we would have done that a few years before, it would have not worked at all. And so I know what that feels like when you're working with someone you love. It takes a lot of self-awareness and awareness of their strengths and weaknesses too.
Yeah.
And being able to take that honest feedback. But there's nothing better than working with someone you love and having them tell you the truth.
It's like such a great thing, but it is, you know, to say it's like that it's not challenging.
Easy. Yeah.
It's just different
Absolutely.
problems.
I fully agree with you.
But I love it. And I wouldn't want it any other way because my whole world is this. And to not have him a part of it would feel very weird.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. We joke around and say that like I'm the gas pedal and she's the brake. And you have to have both, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, I'd be going so fast that I would just be crashing into walls all the time.
I'm the gas pedal too.
You're the gas pedal too.
Yeah, we're all
the gas.
She would she would just be pressing the brake, you know? So it's always that nice balance, I think, that makes a very successful combo.
Yeah.
So you've collabed with a lot of people as well, right?
Yeah. I think good amount.
Yeah. So what has been your favorite collaboration so far?
I don't collab with people I don't like. So my favorite would be anyone that I've collabed with because I would just pass on it. I'd be like, I'm busy. Like if it's not gonna like help me or make me feel good or I just don't, it's not worth it to me. I've had those experiences. So I'm like, I mean, I've
honored.
I know.
Yeah, like Jordan, you know, Sophie Dossie is like, you know, it's crazy to see someone like a contortionist in a suit. Like, I just think her talent is so unique. And like, you're just like, okay, you're gonna shoot an apple that's on my head right now with your foot while you're in a handstand. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And she does, you know, like, I think that's just like crazy.
Yeah.
And then I see Jordan and Jordan Matter, who's like a photographer, and he has this like whole career. And now he's doing YouTube and having this whole other, you know, I just love, like, I think it's just fun to like see everyone different.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting for anyone out there that has a skill or a talent. Like you started in gymnastics, and I've seen like even cheerleading videos and ways you use your skills, but you can be a photographer, a contortionist.
Yeah.
You can not have skills like me and just be like a writer. You can
That's
have
a skill.
like
That's kind of a skill.
You can have, you know, green eyes and a London accent and like everything you say is like wisdom and BJ.
Yeah,
but
true.
there's so many different outlets, and like no matter what you're doing, I find it fascinating that you can build a career on YouTube, you can build an audience, you can start creating content, and then you can tackle issues that you truly care about, you know?
Yeah.
Like I love how you're breaking so many stereotypes. I'm sure there's like such a large percentage of our listeners that are just like, go Rebecca.
Definitely.
We need more people like Rebecca out there. So
Definitely.
I mean, I just think that there's different, like for you, it was probably much harder for you to talk about anxiety than it was for a woman to talk, you know, like, so I feel like both genders have problems. It's just different, you know?
That's fair.
Based on stereotypes in society and all of that. So I'm not discrediting the men. Like you guys have to deal with a lot. Like it's the same but different, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah, so we talked about your favorite collaborations. What about people you don't want to collaborate with?
Oh gosh! My favorite was hide and seek until I lost. I hid in a car for so long, and I was sweating. Yeah, I did a hide and seek with him, and it was fun. Collaborating is like a treat for me because it's like it breaks me out of my normal filming schedule, and it's just so interesting. Like I love learning, and so I'm like, oh, that's how they do. It's just so different. Every YouTuber is so different. It's fun. Like he has a free, like stages. I'm like, here's stage 1, 2. Like no YouTuber is doing that. You are setting, have paved a different path, which is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's like so cool. And you know, a monk is on social. Like I know, I know your story, but that's like, I feel like everyone just has paid these like innovators in their own way and paving their own paths. And it's just so interesting and exciting to me.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say, Because I'm sure a lot of people see where we are in our careers right now and say, well, it's easy to build a successful business when you have studios or you have like friendships that are influencers. But one of the things I'm really grateful for is my very first collaboration with Jay was when we were shooting out of my apartment.
Yeah.
And I was actually running a cosmetics company there during the daytime. At nighttime was our studio, so it'd be all like evening and weekend shoots. And then we lived on the second floor. So Laura and I could never come down to get to the refrigerator without us like crossing employees at night. And half the time her food was eaten by somebody else. So yeah, every journey starts somewhere, right? And it's incredible where it can end up if you really work hard and you have that vision.
I loved that story, by the way, because, you know, for Matt and I, we were, you know, kids, like teenagers. We were in a small apartment, and then we moved to another apartment. I mean, by doing YouTube, you can really see it happening.
Right.
You can see the growth. But I will say it's the same. It's different problems, you know, like I'm like, oh, I remember how simple it was where I just had a camera in my apartment. And then, it's just like enjoy every stage and then appreciate like just being like, I only have myself to shoot. I would set up my camera by myself, spend hours editing, and then Matt would come in and like splice it up to make it, you know. I remember doing that, but like, what a like fun time that was too.
Yes,
you know, now
yes,
it's like, it's bigger, but like I sometimes I'm like, oh, it was so simple back then, you know? I just sat in my bedroom and like propped up a camera, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. It's amazing. So many good memories in the journey, and thank you for being so open.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah, this has been so special, honestly. Thank you so much.
It's been so fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. That was awesome. Thanks, Sarah.